food and drink and ghosts, and perhaps even a few murders. You're all invited.
Horror Movie Podcast.
Welcome to House of Ghouls Horror Movie Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Van Gogh. With me, of course, are my co-hosts, Taylor and Colby. Now, today, we have a very special guest. We're all very excited to chat with him. He's someone who needs no introduction, but just in case. He's the creator of arguably the best slasher franchise and horror icon of the last 20 years. He's made amazing horror films and content. He's a lover of all things horror and an absolute icon. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Adam Green. Adam, thank you so much for taking time out to chat with us today. How are you doing, man?
I kind of just want to end this here because I can't live up to that intro. So.
Oh, you can.
You can. I think the best slasher franchise is Halloween. I know it's got its story issues and stuff later on, but I think that's the best one. When Hatchet 1 came out, the pull quote that they put on the cover was the holy grail of slasher films when the Blu-ray came out, and I was so opposed to that. I'm like, John Carpenter's Halloween is the holy grail of slasher films. Please don't put that on here. But you know, I get something that glowing, of course they're gonna use it. But thank you.
Does it ever become uncomfortable for you to be held in such high regard? Because people love Hatchet. Like, if you ask me about Hatchet, like Victor Crowley is probably like heralded up there with like our modern day antagonists, like like what Michael Myers was back in the 70s and Freddy Krueger was in the 80s. I feel like, I don't know, like, oh, you have like Art the Clown, like Chrome Skull, and then like Victor Crowley's on the top of the list for me, at least. Is it uncomfortable to like receive that?
Yes, it's very uncomfortable. It's amazing. It's so humbling and flattering that this thing has become what it has. And I think as long as people keep characters like Victor and Art separate from like the really big ones like Freddy and Jason and Michael Myers.
Zeitgeist.
Yeah, because this is a different era of them, and I'm just happy that Art the Clown is here now because it was getting lonely, and it's been really exciting to see what Damien and his whole team have done with the Terrifier series. I can't wait for the third one, so it's very exciting.
Oh, absolutely. So I want to just kind of go back to the beginning here real quick. I want to know what kind of fueled your desire to get into filmmaking. Obviously, you're a big horror fan, but what exactly was it that made you want to make movies of your own?
It was actually E.T. that did it for me. I think like most kids who grew up in the early 80s, like Star Wars was everything to me, just playing with the toys and everything. And I noticed when I would be playing with my friends, if they made any of the characters do something that wasn't in character with the movies, like if somebody suddenly has Han Solo start shooting at Chewbacca, I'd have to stop everything and be like, what are you doing? Like, this is no, this can't happen. So I was already starting to at least appreciate storytelling and trying to like stick to a narrative. But then when I saw E.T. in the theater, I remember thinking, I don't believe this. Like, E.T. doesn't look real to me, yet I was so blown away. And by the end of it, I was crying. And so we only got to go to the movies like twice each summer back then, just even though I think movie tickets were like $3 or $5, that was all we could do. We weren't allowed to get popcorn either because we didn't have the money for it. And my mom would bring like sandwiches in her purse. It was awful. But that's neither here nor there. But when it was time to go to a second movie later that summer, I'm like, I want to see E.T. again. And they're like, well, don't you want to see something different? You already saw it. But like, I couldn't figure out, how did this make me cry when I know it's just a movie and it's not even real? And that was when I started noticing the dialogue and the music and the way it was put together. Even Carol Littleton, who edited that, the jump cut right before when the cops, well, back then the cops still had guns. And then right before E.T. and Elliot take off and all the kids' bikes take off, there's a jump cut into their faces that there's nothing else in the movie that's edited that way. So I didn't really understand what all of it was, but I just became obsessed with trying to figure it out. And I think horror was always my main passion, just because I love the holiday of Halloween so much, and horror movies were a way to keep it going year round. So it was tough though, because when you're in film school and you're surrounded by, like, for lack of a better term, kind of snobby, know-it-all film geeks who only like foreign films, like if the movie's in English, it's crap. Like, and it has to be black and white, subtitled, like, and I just like, I'm like, I love Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween and The Thing, and like I want to make horror movies. And it was as if I had said I want to do porn. Like I was just like
Yeah.
a joke. And I'm the only one who actually ever made a movie. So from at least from the class I was in. So yeah, it's tough when horror is your passion, because even though everyone knows it's got a huge following, it makes money at the box office, whatever, you're still always looked at as, oh, but you do horror movies. And it's like,
You might
well,
need therapy.
yeah. But if, as you guys I'm sure know, all you have to do is go to a convention, and the friends that I grew up with, they're always like, horror convention. What is it, like a bunch of morbid goth people walking around like celebrating death? And I'm like, no, it's families. It's like you meet like 100 friends that you never knew you had. It's the nicest people. You always feel accepted. Like, I mean, it is the greatest. When I first got to Hollywood, I was doing stand-up, and it was mainly just to try to become a better writer. I never wanted to be a stand-up comic, but like comedy's always been part of what I do for the most part. Other than like Frozen and Spiral, usually the things I do are pretty funny, and or at least I try to make them money. And comedians are some of the most miserable human beings you can be around. And once I started falling in with the horror crowd, that was where I found like my people, my friends. They're all like family people. They're all just so much more well adjusted. So it's definitely a misconception that we're all sick in the head. I mean, I guess we are, but in a good way.
That's funny that you say that, because I think the comedy in your movie, I think it has perfect timing. And it's something that you don't see a lot, how good it is in your movie. I think David Gordon Green does it pretty good too, but something that really stands out with your movies.
It's, look, if you're gonna do comedy horror, it's really tough, like especially on the studio side, because it's really hard to market. And so it's just not often that you see one of those. And then like, for every Shaun of the Dead or Tucker and Dale or even American Werewolf and Fright Night, which were those were my biggest inspirations for Hatchet, was American Werewolf and Fright Night. For every one of those, there's other ones where I think because they mix the comedy with the horror, it ends up being a movie for no one in a way, because like straight comedy fans aren't really interested in seeing a horror movie. And then if the movie is just silly, it just sort of makes it very, very niche for horror fans. So my thing was always try to keep it a horror movie, but then just make the characters enjoyable to watch at least. Because the 80s slashers that I grew up on, some of them, it was like tedious those first 45 minutes. Like just get to the fucking, like, give me Michael Myers, give me Jason, give me
Yeah.
Freddy. Like I don't care about this one breaking up with that one, or this one's problems. I just tried to make the characters as fun as I could, and then keep the scary stuff.
No, I love that. I love that idea, because you're absolutely right. As a kid watching that, it's like a slog waiting to see the reveal of the killer and it to get to the good stuff. So I love that.
You'll notice the original trailer for Hatchet, there's no comedic stuff in that trailer.
Mhm.
No.
And I understand why that was the decision, because I think people were, especially because slashers were considered completely dead at that point, they worried it would seem like a spoof or something if they showed any of the funny stuff in the trailer. but I know there were people that when they saw it, they were sort of taken aback by the fact that the characters were funny because it's not what they thought it was going to be. But over time, I think that's one of the aspects of what we've done that people do appreciate. But at the time, if you can remember in like 2003, 2004, just even 2005 and 6, it was like torture porn remakes
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
PG-13 stuff. And I just wanted to make the type of thing I wanted to see.
Mhm.
So when the script for Hatchet went around, it was originally called Victor Crowley, but when it went around, I got a great response in terms of like getting meetings and even getting jobs. Like I got hired to write Cabin Fever 2. My script was not the one that got made. But nobody wanted to make the movie because they're like, well, is it funny or is it scary? Because it can't be this graphically violent and this funny. Like you got to pick a lane, and then it'll be like, well, slashers are dead. Nobody wants these anymore. And I'm like, I think you're wrong. Like nothing in horror is ever dead. It might kind of subside for a bit, but then somebody comes around and does it their way, and hopefully it connects with a whole bunch of us. I'm kind of tough because I tend to like almost everything. I just want to champion everything because I'm so happy just something got made, or especially if it does well, it's so good for the genre. It's just good for all of us. So yeah.
Do you
I-
think that Hatchet being released and then, sorry, Colby,
No, you
do
go
you think
ahead.
that Hatchet being released and the studio is telling you that like, hey, this slasher film and at this time period is not going to do well? But since then, I feel like slashers have made a full comeback. Do you think that Hatchet had anything to do with that resurgence of what we see now? Because I mean, slashers are very abundant now.
They seem to be. I'm not sure. I think that it's more the originals all being remade in the 2000s. I think that helped bring it around again in a big way. I think Scream coming back has helped in a big way because you got to remember things like Hatchet or even like Terrifier or whatever, like they're not they're more I don't know. They're not underground anymore, but they're not these huge tentpole movies that are getting, 40 million in marketing. Like when Hatchet came out, nobody knew it was even in theaters. It was on like 100 screens around the country. It was massively censored by the MPAA, which was also bittersweet because it's like to go to the theater and buy a ticket to your movie and be like, oh my God, like this is crazy, and then the movie plays and it's not the movie you made and you're just like, oh my God. And they were so hard on Hatchet, so hard on it, because I think the MPAA was getting backlash because of like the torture porn stuff, but those were studio movies. And so then along comes this other one, and I'm like, wait, like there's no sex in this movie. There's not even that much swearing. No one, I don't even think anyone smokes a cigarette in this movie. And like none of this gore is realistic. Like you do understand you couldn't actually physically do this to somebody. Like and the blood is shooting like 40 feet in the air, and they just, oh my God, they were so hard on it. And I stupidly went to trial because you can appeal it, the rate,
Yeah.
and everyone tells you just don't bother. But I had already cut so much out, and then I saw the Hills Have Eyes remake, and I was like, come on, really? And so I went to appeal it. And if you've ever, there's a documentary called This Film Has Not Yet Been Rated by Kirby Dick. It came out around that time. So those were the actual people that I had to contend with. And
Wow.
on the day of the appeal, because they screened the movie for quote 12 industry professionals. So it's supposed to be theater owners and operators, studio execs, and they're not there to rate the movie. They're just there to objectively decide, was this held to the same standard that other movies are? And they walked in 12 senior citizens. One dude was in a walker. And I'm like, oh, now I get it. Like it's all a setup. But D.
Wow.
Snyder had told me, he called me on my way in, and he famously stood up to the PMRC and went to to Congress, the whole thing back in the 80s. And he goes, listen, you're going to lose. Just don't let him see you cry. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to lose. Like, you don't understand. Like, I have an ironclad case. And he goes, all right, cool. When you lose. And I just didn't understand what a setup it was. And so someone got up in front of the audience. They said, the film you're about to watch is called Hatchet. Immediately, the whole crowd of 12 goes, ugh. And I'm like, this is going to be awesome. And then the movie plays, and I had seen it all over the world at festivals at this point. Maybe not every joke hits the same way in certain places, but there are a couple jokes, no matter what language it was, no matter where you were, the audience would laugh. Silence. And at one point, I think it was, I think the joke that where it really pissed me off was, Richard really looks to Joel Murray on the bus and he goes, oh, what kind of movie you making? And Joel says, well, ever hear of Bayou Beavers? And Richard goes, sure. But his wife is saying no. So he goes, no. Always got a big laugh in the theater, silence. And I literally from the back of the theater went, come on. I was so mad. And then once Victor Crowley showed up, they just couldn't even look at it. So I got up to speak and I used the Hills Have Eyes remake as one of my main points of reference. I think I used like one of the Saw movies, Hostel, and I was like, look, I like all those movies. I'm like, but in the Hills Have Eyes remake, the monsters rape a woman in front of a baby, bite the head off the family parakeet and drink the blood, suck on the mom's breast until she lactates in the monster's mouth. And meanwhile, dad is outside crucified and on fire. And no one's laughing. I'm like, and that got an R rating. But you're telling me an undead swamp monster with a gas-powered belt sander that, by the way, doesn't exist, killing a bunch of comedians like Monty Python, and that's where you draw the line? Or is it because this is an indie movie that made it to theaters, so you need to stop it? And then Joan Graves gets up and goes, the films that Mr. Green just cited, the Hills Have Eyes remake and whatever it was, Saw 2, Hostel, have any of you seen those films? And they all are like, no. And she's like, those are stricken from the record. Done. Like, they even censored the poster. Just the black poster with the hatchet on it. We had to make the blood brown. But they were so hard on it. So when the sequel came around, I was like, I don't want to put this in theaters because now I'm out for fucking blood and I'm going to be so graphic and so violent and so over the top. And Dark Sky was like, do it. And then around release time, it was, hey, you know, AMC just started this thing called AMC Independent, where the movies don't have to be rated and they can still play in major multiplexes for the first time. And they want to do this unrated. And I was like, oh my God, victory. Like, I found a way around this. And as most people know by now, they ended up pulling it from all screens in like the first, whatever it was, 24 hours, 48 hours, just gone, just disappeared. And you got to hand it to Dark Sky because at that point, they could have pushed the home video release as the movie they didn't want you to see it. And I was like, please don't do that. It's not, they're harmless movies, as violent as they might be. And they never did that. So it was amazing. But it is cool to do appearances at conventions and meet people who have their ticket stub for Hatchet 2, because there's not many of them. So it's, I don't know, these days it's all just part of the story and I can laugh about it. But at the time going through it, it was awful. Absolutely awful.
Taylor and I have our first convention coming up in August that we're going to. He's flying out to Chicago and we're doing the Chicago Horror Con.
Nice. And this is your first one?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a horror fan. I'm 37, and I've like, I mean, I saw Hatchet when it came out. So I mean, I don't know, since like the early 90s. Like, I think my first horror movie was like Tremors in like 91 on the VHS tape. Yeah, that was my first introduction to it. But yeah, this is gonna be my first convention.
Do you know what t-shirts you're wearing yet? Have you already decided?
I haven't
Oh,
yet.
no,
I think I'm gonna
we're
buy
shopping.
I think I'm gonna buy a nice button-up horror t-shirt.
All right. Yeah, because the t-shirts are the best conversation starters at those. Because literally you can make the slightest bit of effort with anybody there and you'll make a new best friend. They are the greatest thing. Only our genre has them like this. I know obviously there's like San Diego Comic-Con and there's, you know, the bigger like Hollywood or like Marvel movie, Disney stuff. But the horror conventions, those are like the lifeblood for all of this. And I always try to tell my other friends who are filmmakers, you gotta go. Like, go meet the people that really appreciate what you do. It will change your whole perspective. Because I mean, it's no secret that it is a cutthroat and rotten industry. Like, just the business side of it is terrible.
Yeah.
But what we do and the way we can directly connect with our audience is unlike anything else. And it's like, it sounds like such a cliche thing to say, but the fans keep this thing alive, and it is absolutely amazing every time you meet somebody who might be like, whatever, like Holliston was the last thing I watched with my dad before he died, or meeting military or firemen or policemen or whatever it might be, and knowing that something you made their life a little better for 90 minutes or whatever. It's just all of a sudden, all the negative stuff you have to go through, it means nothing. Like, all that matters is the audience.
So being an indie filmmaker, I would say you're definitely more mainstream now, but being from indie, having the indie background, how much love do you have for like these up and coming indie movies? Like, are you able to watch a lot of these indie movies that are up and coming right now?
Yeah, because Joe Lynch and I have done the Movie Crypt podcast every week for 11 plus years now. We've never missed a Monday with a new episode. So we get sent screeners of everything that's coming out, and we try to have everybody on that we can, at least. And just, it's, the main thing we get out of it is that we're helping push somebody else forward. And we're always telling people, don't just listen to the episodes when we have like an Oscar winner or like some A-list star on. Like, listen to the people maybe you're like, oh, who is that? Like, I think next week is Chris Nash, who just wrote and directed A Violent Nature. The people that are doing it now, like, that's who you need to hear from, because a lot of our audience are aspiring filmmakers, and it's like, it's awesome to hear from whatever, Chris Columbus or Slash or somebody who got their start way back when.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to do it now, listen to the people that are doing it now. And it's just always exciting to see new stuff and new voices and new ways of doing things come up. So I love all of it.
That makes me so happy hearing, because us three, we're content creators on TikTok. We review mainly indie horror movies, and I didn't know how much of effect that we have, because I'll post a review, and if I see the director on TikTok or Instagram, I'll tag him in it. And a bunch of times, like, they've blown up, and we've been like the part of like resurgences of certain movies, of movies just released. Like, I wasn't part of the coffee table part, but a bunch of people got that blown up. We helped with Circus of the Dead lately. The biggest one lately that we got going was Godless, the Eastfield Exorcist.
Oh,
If you have not seen that, you need to check that one out.
It's on
This
Tubi.
is exactly what I'm talking about with the community that we have. And there was a point, I think, really in the earlier days of the internet, especially when IMDb still had message boards, where everything was just fucking negative.
Yep.
It was just, this sucks, worst movie ever. Like, it was awful. But it seems like, at least within our genre, as much as you'll still see people that just need to like bitch about whatever for some reason, more people than not now, they just champion the things they see that they like, and they want to spread the word. And so it's great that you guys do that, because it is helping. Every time somebody posts like the meme of Victor Crowley ripping Mrs. Primadio's face in half,
Oh, it's the best.
horror fan is like, wait, I never saw that. What is that? And then they go find it. So that's the other thing too. It's like when you were saying, well, maybe you're more mainstream now. I'm never going to feel mainstream. I'm always gonna feel like an outsider in this town, which is good. Like, my thing, and I recommend this to anyone else, if you're fortunate enough to be able to, but I just sort of built my own little island here. Like, right now I'm in the edit suite, but like at Ariscope, where like I've worked with mostly the same people for 25 years now. Like, we just do our thing, and thankfully there's a big audience out there that connected with it. But I never was like, I have to go direct whatever summer temple, or else there was no point in doing this. Or, I'm not saying it wouldn't be great, especially to have the time and money and resources to really do what your vision is for something, because you never get to do that on the smaller budget level. But still, but it just I don't know, there's something really positive about all this, and it always helps. And there's a new horror fan born every minute, and then they hit an age where like they've seen everything that's current, but now they want to see anything they might have missed. I mean, we all did that. Even going back as far as like The Wolfman and Creature from the Black Lagoon, it's like you got to see all of it and then make your way up. So all of these movies, they just get a little bit bigger every year.
It's funny too, because one of my recent most popular videos, we actually just did a episode on the whole Hatchet series. Was it 2 or 3 weeks ago? Our friend from
Yeah.
the UK was our guest.
Richard, yeah.
So getting ready, I binged all the Hatchet movies real quick, and I was watching Hatchet 2, and I was like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme pointing at the TV when I saw that Frozen and Hatchet were in the same universe. So I did a video explaining that. That was one of the I never noticed that before, and that was one of my favorite things ever.
My
Yeah,
reality shattered when I saw that. I was like, what?
most of my stuff is all in the same universe. So and what I enjoy about doing it is like that didn't distract you the first time you saw Hatchet 2. You didn't even notice it.
Yeah.
But so it's the type of thing where I'll put little nods in there where if fans are watching it multiple times, maybe they'll notice it and appreciate it. But you don't have to have seen, Holliston to be able to appreciate whatever Frozen or Digging Up the Marrow, whatever it might be. It's just subtle where I try to keep it in there. Because I think if you stop a movie to reference something within your universe that maybe some of the audience has not seen yet or doesn't catch it, then you can start losing people. But people every now and then at conventions I'll get, so what did she die at the end of Frozen because she closed her eyes and she was hearing her boyfriend's voice and then it just ended? And I'm like, no, the answer's out there exactly what happened. Like, have you ever seen the Hatchet movies? So like, yeah. I'm like, watch them again. Like,
Go watch Hatchet 2.
It's so awesome because you won't. I mean, I had that same question, and then Colby was like, "Oh, you got to watch Hatchet 2." I'm like, "I've seen it like 3 times." He's like, "Watch it again," but then like keep Frozen in mind. And I watched it, and I was like, "Now I know what happens to this lady because my small brain was not able to put that linear story path together in Frozen when it's like clearly like, oh, okay, she's on the news in Hatchet 2."
yeah.
I have a huge question about Frozen, Adam.
Sure.
So I was watching Digging Up the Marrow, and you were wearing one of the most badass fucking shirts I've ever seen in that movie. It was a Frozen shirt, and it had like the Metallica font.
Oh,
Can I fucking buy that anywhere?
Oh, please.
Not anymore. So all of my films, when we do crew t-shirts, I do them like concert shirts. So they're always a different take on a different band. So like Chillerama it was done in like the Cinderella logo. And then the shoot dates are on the back. And I think Hatchet 3 was like Slayer, Hatchet 2 was Megadeth. But I'm all about the crew shirts and I want them to be fucking awesome so that people will wear them.
One of the coolest shirts ever.
The Frozen one was Metallica. Now, I do believe though with that one in particular, I could be wrong, but there were only like the first 25 looked like that. And then someone in the production got scared that Lars would come after us or something. I'm like, no, we're making like 65 shirts or something. Like they're not going to. So
Lars wants royalties.
That looked different. But yeah, there were only so many of those. And I think I had like 2 extras, but I've auctioned them off for charity over the years. So most of the stuff that I keep from set, like some stuff, I don't know if you've ever seen what the main Aeriescope office looks like. Unfortunately, we're shooting something today, so I can't do this in there.
You're good.
But the most of the stuff that I'll keep, because I work with this dog rescue called Save a Yorkie Rescue. So every year, when should I do a thing called Yorkie-thon? It used to be that we would stay on the air for 48 hours straight with different guests coming by every hour, musicians, comedians, film commentaries. This is going to be our ninth. Yeah, our ninth one this Christmas. But we've raised like almost $300,000 and saved so many dogs. but we always have like a silent auction part of it. And so I usually stuff like that Frozen shirt that I know will go for a ton of money, I just give it to that. So
Yeah.
but it's just great to know that like this t-shirt that you held on to for however many years is now going to ultimately save like 4 dogs life. Like it's pretty cool.
That's amazing.
I saw that shirt and I was just like, I need that shirt.
Ian had a really good Frozen question that he typed in earlier. Ian, what was it?
Yeah, so I did want to touch on that real quick. And real quick before that, Adam, just to put it on your radar. I don't know if you've heard about it, since you're all about the indie low budget stuff as well. Blood Gorge. It's 40 minutes. It's on YouTube.
Blood Gorge?
Yeah, it's a throwback to 80s horror. Like he made it for $600. It's my buddy Victor
$600?
Gabriel. Yeah. And the gore is gnarly. It's just a fun time.
Super fun.
So please, if you could check it out, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'll check it
But
out.
Frozen. So Frozen, your Frozen was released in 2010. 3 years later,
Oh, I think you froze.
Oh no.
Ian, we'll see ya. He's gone to a better. He's gone to a better digital grave.
He was going to ask. Sorry, I just noticed your cat. What's your cat's name?
My cat's name is
they're
Broody.
Frozen.
And she,
She looks like Axel.
Are we back?
Yes, you're back. Sorry. So
Oh,
you're
right.
good.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about that. All right. Frozen 2010. 3 years later, Disney comes out with their Frozen. How did that impact your Frozen? Did it help it or did it hurt it?
I think over time, if anything, it's helped it. Because so the whole people always ask, like, how could Disney do that? Like, you can't own a word.
Right.
So there's probably lots of things called Frozen for all I know. But yeah, when that came out, I loved it. I thought that was great. And every now and then you'll read a review on like iTunes or Amazon where it's a parent like just complaining and it's like, what the fuck? Like, and I don't know if they're all real or not, or if it's just people trying to be funny, but I think it probably helped because there are unfortunately many parents who don't pay attention to what their kids are watching. And because our film had already been out for 3 or 4 years when Frozen came out, I'm sure there were plenty of people that rented ours by mistake, sat their kids down and walked away. So yeah, I think it's awesome. And then, Frozen's just one of those movies, like that's my most successful movie. It's more successful than Hatchet or anything else. And just, I want to say maybe two Christmases ago or 2 winters ago, it was like the #2 movie on Hulu again. Like it just keeps coming back around again. And I think it's just one of those movies because of the setup and the situation, especially when you hear, wait, it's a whole movie with 3 people in a chair, which I can tell you my agent at the time did not get it. When I sent it to him, he's like, you can't, it's 3 people in a chair. And I'm like, I know, right? And he's like, how are you going to pull this off? You're not going to be able to sustain it for 90 minutes. I'm like, no, I think I can do it. And I don't know. Some people say I did, some people say I didn't, but I'm never gonna stop being proud of that movie. What the crew went through, what that cast went through to make it. I mean, they were really up there for the whole thing. And just I don't know. Now that I'm older and wiser, like I watched like 5 minutes of the making of, because I think the making of on that Blu-ray, it's like 90 minutes worth of stuff. It's incredible. And I didn't even recognize any of us. I'm like, who are these people that are this crazy that they went and stood on the side of a mountain for a month in the middle of the night shooting this thing? Like now, like if I have to get out of my recliner, like it's already too hard.
was that a brutal shoot to do for the for Frozen, since it was all done like on a ski lift? I mean,
It
you guys, it looked like it was shot like on location, and you guys were just freeze. I can only imagine the whole crew is freezing.
Yep, the whole crew was freezing. It was 100% on location. We had one scene inside the lodge. And so when you're making a movie, in order to get bonded and have insurance, you have to have some covered sets. So that way, if there's bad weather, there is still something you can pull up and shoot that night. And I was like, we're not going to shoot this covered set bit till very last because I want it to be bad weather. If it hails, if it snows, we're just going to shoot. And when you watch the making of, you see how we're shooting through it. But every now and then, and I don't know if it's because that movie just gets in because it could actually potentially happen. I mean, it has
100%.
happened to people, but there's this defense mechanism that happens in horror. I mean, you see it with slasher movies all the time. The guy in the audience going, he's going to jump out from there. Oh, she's dead. She's dead. Yeah, we know. Just shut up. Watch it. But with Frozen, it's always, this would never happen. I would just jump. Just jump. It's not that bad. Jump. And then he jumps. And
They do. And then
why did he
like,
jump? It's so stupid. This movie's so fucking stupid. And then it's come down to people not wanting to believe that we really did it. So now it's, you can't see their breath and shots in here. So clearly they're on a sound stage. Yeah. So then we faked the making of on a mountain shooting through that weather just to then go to a sound stage. Like it's amazing how that movie bothers people. And I love it. I absolutely love it.
It's literally in my top 15 of all time favorites.
Thank you.
The way
Thank you very
that
much.
you emphasize on the claustrophobia aspect, it's just, and like I could watch that movie in the middle of the summer and I'll feel fucking cold. I think it's done so fucking well. And Sean Ashmore and Kevin Zegers were like my childhood with Air Bud and everything that Sean Ashmore's in. I just love that movie. Yeah,
Air Bud. Oh,
And those two had been friends for life, which helped with the whole.
The chemistry was amazing.
Yeah. But Emma Bell, she was the first person to audition for that movie, not just that character, but for the movie. And she walked in and her audition piece was the monologue about what's going to happen to her dog at home. Her dog's going to starve to death because nobody knows that she's going to be dead. And she's crying and I was crying and I'm like, that's Parker. And everyone was like, you can't cast the first person to walk in. So they made me sit through 5 more weeks of like, whatever it was, 20, 25 women a day. And I'm like, no, it was the first, it was her, but they wanted somebody who was a recognizable face. And then somebody came in who was very recognizable. And I was like, oh shit, they're gonna go with her. But I knew, I can't say the person's name because I don't want to sound like I'm against this person in any way, but I knew that they had too much money personally to do this movie. I'm like, whoever does this needs to want it so bad because what they're going to go through, they can't go to the bathroom. They can't eat, like they're stuck. And sure enough, when it came down to it, that person's lawyer was like, they'll only go in the chair for 2 hours a night. It has to be on a soundstage. They have to be able to get down. And so I was able to get Emma. And then she went on to do Final Destination 5, Walking Dead, Dallas, and Frozen, it says, and introducing Emma Bell. So very proud of her. And I mean, all of them, they all gave me everything they had and they were just so amazing. And I don't know, it's weird because like I'm the spokesperson for the films that I make, but I don't make them. Like there's a whole group of us that do this and they're only as good as they may or may not be because of the people I'm surrounded with. And I know people say that type of stuff all the time, but it's so true. Like I'm just so blessed to work with the people that I work with because they're just incredible.
I love that. And I'm glad you brought that story up because I wanted to ask, because the very obvious recasting in Hatchet 2, was that meant to be campy to like show a different character? Yeah, Taylor, you can finish this question.
No, I was just gonna say that I laughed so hard when I saw that, and I don't know the intention. Obviously the intention was like maybe one actress wasn't available or this or that, but I laughed so hard just knowing the reverence of comedy written from the first film. I just audibly laughed.
Yeah, that is like one of the only things, or I guess it's like the main thing that will always like be this little like because originally it was only going to be 3 films when I made the first one. That was the idea. They were all going to stop and start right where the other one ended, and then we were going to release it as one long movie someday. And the problem with that, though, the main actress switches between one and the rest of the films. And also there's all kinds of issues we would run into with the unions because for like SAG, for instance, all of that stuff, the order that names come up, that if one actor is listed in the opening credits, other ones have to be as well. it would mess up everything. So and then so we sort of gave up on that gimmick by the third one because the aspect ratio even changes on the third one. But yeah, what happened was just and look, I loved Tamara Feldman, who played Mary Beth in the first one. She was so incredible to work with. We're still friendly to this day, but she just had a bad agent who was an idiot. And he, like, the amount of money he was asking for was more than the budget of the movie. Like, it was ridiculous. And we're just laughing. We're like, what are you doing? And he was just, but the first one blew up and now there's a sequel. So he's like, you're getting paid. And I kept calling her and I'm like, this isn't gonna happen. I will just replace you. Don't make me do this. And I'm like, if I replace you, I'm going to replace you with the biggest scream queen of our generation. And no
Yeah.
one's ever going to remember you were part of this.
Yeah.
Don't do this. And so, yeah, that's a whole story for the book one day. Cause the day that we announced Danielle, which most horror fans just celebrated, they were like, holy shit,
Yeah.
somehow they made this better. The day that we announced Danielle, that night, there was a screening of Hatchet at a theater here in LA. It was called the Silent Movie Theater back then, even though it wasn't Silent Movie Theater anymore. And Tamara came to that screening. And it was weird for everybody because it had just been announced that she was out. But you know, it's the first movie, that's what we're showing. Of course she should be there. And then in the Q&A, when someone said, what can you tell us about Hatchet 2? She took the mic and started saying, I'm going to go after him this time with a bunch of hunters. And all of us are like, this is so uncomfortable. And then I had to like go outside with her and be like, Tamara, you're not doing it. Like, it's done. And she's like, no, it's fine. I don't care. I'm like, no, it's done. Like, it was bad. But it's all water under the bridge now. And the fact that when we secretly unveiled Victor Crowley as a surprise, it was billed as a 10th anniversary screening of Hatchet, and nobody knew that what we were going to do is actually show a new movie that no one knew had been made. But the whole original cast came and did the carpet knowing we weren't even really watching Hatchet, and they got dressed up and they came and they treated it like a premiere. I mean, when the movie ended, all four casts from all four films got up on that in front of the audience. I don't think I've ever seen that for another series. The fact that whenever we make a new one, usually a lot of people from the previous cast will all come to set just to wish the new cast good luck and hang out. Like, it's a very special thing. And I know that's why fans get frustrated because they're like, just make another one already. But the stars just have to align and we have to want to do it. And then like this little tiny bit of magic happens. But if we start becoming a conveyor belt where because they're successful, like, all right,
Yeah.
next October, here's another one, here's another one. Like, I don't want to do that.
Saw.
Well, I don't want to name names, but because look,
Yeah.
every movie's got something good about it, and every
Of
movie's
course.
fans. But I don't know, with this, it just something sort of happens. Like, all of a sudden there's like late night phone calls and texts, and then the band reassembles and we do it. I don't think I'll ever be able to keep one secret again. I still can't believe it worked last time, but that's how wonderful the crew was, and the cat, nobody said a word. So it was amazing. But I do think if it hadn't been for these last 4 years being such a trash fire in this industry between the pandemic and then the writer's strike and then the SAG strike, and like, it's still, things are not normal here yet. It's starting to look like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm supposed to start another thing very soon.
Please be Hatchet 5. Please be Hatchet.
It is not Hatchet 5. It's something new.
Is it the TV show you're working on?
No, that died in the pandemic.
Oh, no.
Dude, that was over $100 million first season, and it took almost 11 years to get to that point. It was
What is it,
originally
Killer Pizza or something?
Killer Pizza. It was originally a movie for MGM, and then there was a regime change and stuff, and then we had to get the rights back, and then developed it as a series. And the team that I was working with on that, I mean, fucking Chris Columbus, who was my like idol growing up, just because of his script, Goonies and Gremlins. I mean, Mrs. Doubtfire, Home Alone, like, these just
Harry Potter too.
yeah, of course, Harry Potter. And like that was like the 800-pound gorilla to finally like push something into the big leagues, you know? And I love that project so much. And even more so when it became a series. And then finally it was happening. And I was at the effects shop, it was Legacy. They were going to be doing the effects, and literally all the Marvel stuff is there, all the Star Wars stuff is there. I got to see Boba Fett in the Sarlacc pit damaged costume like 2 years before that came out. I had to sign like all these NDAs just because of what I was going to see in there. And I'm like, these are the people doing the monsters for this. And then it was literally 4 hours after I was at the shop when it was we're gonna shut the country down for 2 weeks to slow the curve. And I was like, this is it, it's over. And everyone's like, it's not over, it's 2 weeks. I'm like, you think this is gonna be gone in 2 weeks? Like, but he said, yeah, he said. So yeah, that was the end. And so they kept pushing it 2 months, and then poof, gone. So nothing, as I've learned, I mean, Holliston took 13 years. So you never know. Maybe someday it'll come back around again. I think the world needs that series because it was so fun. It's this kid who gets a summer job at a place called Killer Pizza and then finds out that it's actually a covert monster hunting organization. And like, these are the people who keep us safe. But the monsters, there was no monsters that anybody had ever seen before. They were all things I made up. Alex Pardee, who his artwork is what inspired Digging Up the Marrow. He's like my favorite living artist. He designed the monsters. Like, so they were so original. There was one called the Phlegmopede. I can't even describe how disgusting it was, but like, fuck, man. Oh God, it's always gonna hurt. But yeah, it's been a weird 4 years. I do think had this all not happened over these last 4 years, we might have done a new one by now, but there's other stuff that's gonna come first. And also the one thing I beg people to remember, like I'm almost 50 years old. Will Barrett, my DP, he's like almost 60. Like, we can't just do stuff for the love of it forever. Like, we have to feed our families. We have to like, and no one ever makes money on a Hatchet movie, on the crew. The people in charge, I know they don't like me saying this, they make a fucking fortune no matter what they say. Tell me this, what movie has 3 sequels, 3 action figures, Halloween Mask, a long-running comic book series, but it hasn't made any money yet? Fuck you. So yeah, it's a bullshit industry, but you just sort of have to grin and bear it. All
I hope you all enjoyed our chat with Adam Green. Unfortunately, the feed did cut off at the very end, but Adam had to get going anyways. But fellas, what do we think? How was it?
I'm on cloud fucking 9.
I didn't want to say this during the podcast, but I was erect for like 45 minutes straight, and now I think I might need to consult a physician.
Probably should, yeah, for sure.
I didn't want to mention it while we were saying things just because I didn't want to make it weird. It was already weird that I complimented him like right out the gate.
I just want to say
Probably
it was such a fucking blast. Like, Adam Green is someone that I've admired and have loved his movies for decades. And just having the chance to talk to him about the things that we love was fucking amazing. And I can't thank Adam enough for taking time out to chat with us. So fucking cool.
Yeah, that was incredible. I'm upset I didn't get to say this, but the compliment I wanted to give him was the movies he makes, like each one is a love letter for horror fans, a love letter from every genre he's done, like subgenre he's done so far. And it's such a blast watching any movie he does. Like, he makes them fun. Frozen definitely has a more serious tone than any of his other movies, but that dude's a genius.
He brought up Digging Up the Marrow, and that was something that I just recently watched last night for the very first time because I'd seen all this other stuff. I know you just what was the movie you just watched? Chillerama? Yeah, I've seen Chillerama before, but just like Digging Up the Marrow, it took me 2 watches because like I'd spent all day in the sun drinking beer yesterday, so I was very fatigued from a hard day of work. So I took 2 watches, but I absolutely love the creature design in it. Even to the point where like he went into like I don't know, it seems like he is that way. Because like having had to talk to him after watching him on a screen, actually like say how he is with fans, and but literally tell us the same thing that we saw in Digging Up the Marrow is fucking amazing, insane. Like there's just it felt genuine when I watched Digging Up the Marrow, and all this interview did was just echo the sentiment of like, oh, that really is this human being. That's what he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, from the first half of Digging Up the Marrow, where it's kind of a documentary, mockumentary on him, and then I was just watching episodes of Adam Green's Scary Sleepover on YouTube, and
Is there nudity in that?
no,
Oh.
not that I've seen yet. I haven't watched all of them yet, but I mean,
I'm just curious.
But
I'm just curious.
yeah, right. No, valid question. But yeah, just seeing him on that and how much of a fan he is, and that very much translates to the work that he does, and being able to actually speak to him, he's no bullshit. Like he's not putting on an act for the content he's making. Like he's very much so a fan of horror, and it's very near and dear to him, just like it is to us. And hearing him talk about supporting independent low budget stuff, that was just absolutely amazing. And I love the fact that he is such a big voice in the horror community, while also being such a supporter of the kind of the little guy. It was so fucking cool.
Mhm.
I honestly liked hearing I liked hearing about what he said during the end of our interview when he was like, yeah, like this fucking corporation, it's making a ton of money, but I just do it because I love this, and like I want more people to step out so that like these people can be compensated, and like I want to be able to like pay my bills and feed my family. It's not just something that I can do because I love anymore. But I mean, for that ever to be the situation where because you would think that the dude is 4 movies in a super successful horror franchise that everyone's heard of. That I mean, you've had half it was on Netflix. It's been on Hulu. It's literally been on every streaming platform. I think all 4 of them are on Tubi right now and Screambox. But
Mhm.
you would think that something like that would set up somebody just forever, just in perpetuity, to have that big of a reach with that big of a character. And for him to come forward and be so candid and transparent about like, no, these fucking studios, like I'm gonna have to go make goddamn Paranorman. I'm gonna have to go make a movie that can make money with my talents, because this is not, you know what I mean? These studios are not generous. It sounded
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and that it touched my anti-corporate heart.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it was interesting because you think Adam Green, like we all know him. He's a very well-known person in the horror community, but I feel like even outside of it a little bit. But yeah, you think of him, he's very successful. But yeah, hearing him say like they might be successful, but that doesn't translate to, he's obviously not a millionaire, anything like that. That the studio very much still, horror is still kind of looked down upon in all regards. So I feel like hearing him say that made me feel better about what we do as well. Just, we're 3 guys on TikTok, which in the grand scheme of things it's not anything, but the fact that we have our voices and we can help, boost up filmmakers and stuff like that. Like it meant so much to me.
Yeah, I completely agree.
That was very profound.
completely
That
agree
was
with
so
Ian.
fucking. Did you fucking? I concur, doctor. I concur. Like this guy. You know what's cool about Colby? I mean, I'm gonna break the fourth wall a little bit for you folks that maybe this episode isn't in video. Maybe Ian didn't figure it out. Maybe technology is too much for us, and you just get the audio. So let me just show you Colby looking down at looking this while we're having the interview. He's just like, you know what I mean? Just looking down, you can tell. It's so fucking funny to watch Colby while we have an interview. I can't stop looking at him. I'm trying to make eye contact with Adam Green when he's talking. I'm looking directly at Colby though, because he catches me, because he's fucking looking at the ceiling. He's looking. I'm like, what are you, a fucking bird? What's going on?
It's my
What's going on over
ADD.
there?
It's my ADD, dude.
I have ADD too.
I'm fully
not even
engaged in the
medicated.
interview.
Dude, I just love watching you when we do this. I'm not saying that you're not paying attention, because you have such great rebuttals and things to say, but you are like a cocker spaniel, bro. Like squirrel. It's fucking crazy when we're doing these interviews.
It works.
Is
Is it
way.
like that every time? I've never noticed.
Every single time, like you'll be doing this, like looking directly over here, and then the person will be done talking, and like I'll wait a second because I've learned to like give it a couple seconds to see if one of you guys chime in, and if you don't, I try to get in there to like block out any kind of silence.
Mhm.
And Colby immediately is like, "Hey, so what about this?" I'm like, "What the fuck?" It's like a derailed train like made its way back to the tracks. I'm like, what just happened, dude? Is this fucking Choo Choo Charles over here made his way back to the tracks? Crazy.
But yeah,
Great,
for
like,
everyone,
I've never noticed that.
It's awesome, dude. You guys got to say. I hope this goes live and like Adam Green's
well,
just like
it'll be on
he
YouTube at
wasn't even
least.
looking at me.
So
He wasn't even
we'll get to
looking
see
at
it.
me.
But yeah, for everyone that's watching it and listening, like I said, the episode did get cut at the very end. So we only had like 2 more minutes to talk to Adam. But I did mention that if the chance comes up, if he needs a scene with 3 guys, that we would volunteer to be killed off in an Adam Green movie. So Adam, if you're listening, please keep us in mind, because that would be a fucking dream come true.
You know what Adam said?
I want Victor Crowley to
Like,
Pez dispenser my head.
Yes, right.
you know what? I'm sure your wife would do it for like way less than Victor Crowley. I'm sure
She
she
absolutely
wants to
would. She'd do it for
dispenser
free.
it. Yeah. I thought it was really, really fucking awesome. And like I feel like just having him speak, he answered so many of my questions that I would have asked anyway, and all my questions were simpy as fuck. But I love that the dude was like, "Yeah, I used to be a stand-up comedian, and like writing for this movie was blah 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 blah." And like I identified immediately because I was like, I wanted to be one so badly, but then I realized that like I just like writing comedy and doing comedy on like a platform like this, where it's like horror and comedy, even though I don't necessarily like them to intersect. He was saying like horror and comedy don't usually work because it takes you out of one because it leans into one, and that's I don't know. I just feel like the Hatchet films were the perfect balance of the two.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, when he started saying that, you were the first person I thought of.
Oh yeah,
So, yeah,
I
that was
looked
really
I
cool.
looked at
Me
I
too.
looked
Me
at
too.
both of you, and I was like, yeah, I looked at both of you, and I was like, you better be looking at me right now. This
Oh,
is my
absolutely.
moment.
Always
This is
looking
my
at you,
8
bud.
Mile Eminem moment.
This is
I can't
my
believe he used to be a
moment.
stand-up. I can't believe he used to be a fucking stand-up comedian, dude. That was such an awesome like
That's
revelation.
gnarly.
And I don't know if like a lot of people know this kind of shit about Adam. And like I just want everybody to go listen to the Movie Crypt on Spotify and Apple, his podcast. Because I mean, if you're listening to this on Spotify, YouTube, whatever, just type in the Movie Crypt. And there you go. You have 577 episodes of Adam Green interviewing all types of people from the horror community, like from fucking producers, directors, actors, like people that aren't even in the horror community. It's insane. Like his body of work is insane.
Oh, 100%. 100%. So yeah, before we wrap it
You
up,
can
then,
even
any
just type in
final
Adam
thoughts
Green
here?
and it'll pop up.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah,
You,
we'll
ty-
get,
you,
we'll
put,
get
you
it
type in
wrapped.
gangrene and something else will pop up.
It's just as scary.
A picture
But
of
yeah.
Colby's
Yeah,
really
correct.
high eyes will pop up if you type in gangrene.
But now we'll get it wrapped up here. Any final thoughts, fellas?
I just love how high Colby is right now.
I'm not even high right now.
So that was the most confident that I've ever been in an interview. It was the most like
Mhm.
I was able to, because sometimes I trail off. Sometimes like someone will be talking for a really long time, and I will fight to stay focused because I want to be engaged and I want to be focused. But it's not always the case with like my ADHD. Unlike Colby, I actually have it. I'm not a faker or a pretender. But you know, it was really, really easy to hang on to what he was saying. I revere everything that he does, and I think that he has made Victor Crowley a modern day fucking Michael Myers, or like even like a Ghostface, Pinhead, whatever. Like these are the movie monsters that I look up to. So it was just such a privilege to actually share a space with someone that like I've been following their work for 15 years.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Whether he acknowledges it or not, Victor Crowley is one of the fucking coolest, gnarliest fucking slasher villains of all time.
He's lucky he only had 45 minutes. I would have busted his balls, or not busted his balls, but just like fucking just hammered him with questions about practical effects, comedy, like comedic influences, like how comedy influences the films he does now. Like what was it like working with one of your, like the first scene in Hatchet is fucking Robert Englund. And then 5 minutes after that, you got Tony Todd with an eye patch. You're just like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, how does it, like, you're working with Candyman and Freddy Krueger. How does that has to feel like a full circle moment where you're just like, I have made it. This is my first film. That Hatchet 1 had a $1.5 million budget. You have Robert Englund and fucking Tony Todd in the
And
film.
Kane Hodder as
it's
Victor Crowley.
Yeah.
Crazy, dude. Crazy.
Yeah, he's got quite the friend group for sure.
Kane Hodder
You have
was
Derek Mears.
See No
Mhm.
Evil, right?
What?
No,
No.
Kane
that's
Hodder's
Kane the
from-
wrestler.
Kane
Kane Hodder's
Hodder's
Jason.
Jason from
Yeah, that's what I thought.
7
I
to
get him
10.
confused.
It happens. All right, but
Right,
yeah, we'll
Kane
wrap it up here. Get out of here before this gets any more crazy. But again, we want to thank Adam so much for taking time out to hang with us. It's such a fucking pleasure, such an honor. And we're still kind of all on cloud nine, absolutely. But we'll include his filmography in the show notes and where to find all of his films. Like Taylor said, he has a long-running podcast called the Movie Crypt. It also has Adam Green's Scary Sleepover that you can find on Air Escape's channel on YouTube. But again, all the links and info will be in the show notes. But yeah, we want to thank you all for listening. We will be back next week with a brand new episode. So have a great week. Stay safe out there. Okay, bye.
Pull out.
And we'll see you next time.
Pull out. Make sure you pull out.
Don't let the ghosts and the ghouls disturb you.
There you go. That's it.